Hi, welcome to Nordic Coffee Chats with Leslea and
Kathy.
Today we're going to talk a little bit about self-belonging, what it means to really feel like you are at home where you're living. And I'm going to hand over to Kathy for the first part because this is part of her job to really communicate what a sense of belonging means. And then we're going to just unpack it and give our own point of view and maybe a few things how we can sort of support you and give you encouragement so you feel at home and thriving in Denmark.
Exactly. So I will start by saying that probably if we think about belonging and we think about culture, what really makes us feel that we belong to a place or to our family, our city, our communities, first and foremost will be common traditions, beliefs, norms, values. Now, we also have to be mindful that even though we are in the same culture, we're speaking the same language, we're celebrating potentially the same holidays, this can also differ from family to family. And I think that's one of the first mistakes that we make when we think of belonging. We think that because we're in Denmark or Spain or the US, that everyone has the same values and traditions and lives their life, sense of humor, right, in the same way. This could not be further from the truth. So this is the first bit about being aware of what it means first and foremost to us. And I think when we look at internationals, we find that this is one of the most important first steps to think about what gives me a sense of belonging. When do I feel at home, comfortable? When do I feel that I can be myself? So what elements have to come into play in order for me to feel that? When we look at internationals in Denmark, I think we can safely say that having a community, a tribe, is one of these things. Family, obviously. Having a good understanding of the culture we're living in, being fluent or at least learning the language is also one of the aspects. And then something that there's always a lot to talk about is also having a purpose. And that, of course, for many people is a professional career. But for some, it's also not that, because not everyone that's here is working or wants to work. Some people are focusing on other aspects of their life, like raising kids, looking after their families, or looking into what they would like to do. So that's a bit of a start into our conversation. And I'm very curious to find out, Leslea, what is it for you? When did you feel a sense of belonging here in Denmark? What was important for you?
I think at the first point was, I think I'd been here maybe 4 or 5 years, and I just took a moment and said to myself, Leslea, you can be miserable for the rest of your life, or you can suck it up, see what good things Denmark has to offer, look at the positive things, because I needed to have a change of mindset. I knew that I just simply wasn't going to be happy here.
Right.
Just carrying on the way I was thinking, I would do a lot of what we call Dane bashing. I'd be very negative about the Danes, blaming them for everything. And actually, I didn't understand everything that was going on here. So I think that was my first step. But I think when I definitely felt at home was when I used to go to the airport years ago, and I'd be on my way back from England to Denmark, and I would hear that Danish accent and I would just cry and beg my husband not to make me go back.
No.
So when I actually get to the airport now, I think, oh, I'm going home. And that for me means this is my home.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that I don't love England anymore, or my people, or my family, or my friends, not remotely. I miss so much of my home, my first home, but I definitely feel like I'm returning home here.
Yeah.
And that took many, many years for me to feel like that. Didn't think for a second I would ever say that, ever. I thought I would always actually be a little bit of unhappy living here, but it's completely changed. So it's a mindset change to start, telling myself this is how it's going to be. Mm-hmm. And I think, and then just over the years, just getting used to how things are here. Yeah. What about you? How did you feel? When did you feel that this was really your home, or that sense of?
Yeah, I think it's interesting, right, to when we think of our own individual stories, because I said it is very, very individual for many people. And I would say, I think when I told you my story of moving around, and for the longest time, I always thought that Poland was my home. I was very connected to Poland, to my home country, my birth country. But after I repatriated, I found out that it wasn't really truly my home because I didn't fully fit in. So people would say, oh, yeah, you're Polish, but yeah, there's something about you're not really, it doesn't seem like you're 100% Polish. And I always thought that's really weird. How do we define that? What makes someone 100% British or 100%
exactly.
Polish, right? Yeah. But I also sensed it. So I thought, so there are different parts of me. And how do I deal with that when it comes to feeling like I belong? So when I moved to Denmark, I felt completely out of place. I felt that it probably, like you, would never be truly and fully my home ever, because there were just so many clashes with me, my personality, and also how I perceived Danes and the behavior and culture. So it was also becoming curious. I think there was a moment where I started getting curious and thinking, why is it that people are doing this here? Or why is it that they are joking in this manner? What drives that? What's behind it? Where did it come from? So really being curious allowed me to learn and also to say, okay, it's different, but it doesn't mean that it's weird or bad, because here our cultural biases kick in, right? Where we're judging or comparing to what we know. And I think I started feeling at home from the moment that I married my husband and we were here, because for me, it's very much about people. And then having our daughter made it feel like this is our home. But interestingly, I think it was when Corona hit and we were in this lockdown where for the first time, I remember thinking, I can't leave Denmark.
Yeah.
And I had a second of a panic.
Yeah.
And then I kind of thought, but that's okay. As long as I knew my parents were fine, and obviously we were in touch, but I felt this kind of like, this is all right. That's okay.
Yeah.
Because we're all here. This is my place.
Yeah.
So I think it was then. And I have, like you have now, that this is home for me. But I think it took a long time just to understand how things work. And the minute that we become curious and we have this moment of, I want to know how come it works this way, I think I would say that we're on our way.
Yeah, definitely. And I used to bring like a suitcase full of food back from England, and I'm sorry to the Danish authorities, probably was some of the food I brought back, like cheeses and stuff, I probably wasn't allowed in the old days. But now I feel like it's just tea. I have a specific tea that I miss, and Cadbury's chocolate, because quite frankly, I don't think anyone can make chocolate as good as that. So I miss that. But I can even find that in Normail now.
Yeah.
I can even find that in shops in Denmark. So it's not like I can do completely without things that I'm looking for. I feel like now what I can find here is enough. And I actually feel overwhelmed when I go shopping back in England.
Really?
Like when I go into supermarkets, which are enormous, and I'm looking for one thing, I'm sometimes get a bit like I can't move. I'm like, I've got so much choice. And I'm so used, I haven't got used to that anymore. I'm used to having maybe one type of cheddar, if I was looking for cheddar. And you'd have like 10 meters of it at home. So I feel like I don't fit in anymore there. It's like, it's just overwhelming and noisy, and there's so many cars, and I'm not used to the traffic anymore. And so I've actually got used to, I call Denmark Sleepy Hollow, because compared to London where I was working, it really is quiet, but I love it. And I think those funny things when I got here, like in the early days, where the shops would shut really early on a Wednesday. and on a Saturday and early in the evening, and I'd say to Alan, shall we go shopping? He'd say, well, the shops are shut. I said, what do you mean? Is Netto not open? I was used to 24-hour shopping.
Yeah.
And I used to get really angry, but now I'm getting more annoyed that the shops are opening longer, because you're going to lose your high street here. So I feel like all the things we did wrong in England, I feel don't do that here.
Yeah.
Because these are the things I love about Denmark.
Yes.
It reminds me of my childhood in England. It's so safe. You have a beautiful high street with lots of interesting shops. It's just a slower pace of life. It just feels very, very different to what I'm used to. And I've embraced that now and actually really enjoy that. So I feel more at home with that than I do feel at home when I go back to my birth country. It just feels overwhelming and huge and busy.
And busy.
Yeah. Anything you miss that you think, I mean, food, I would say, would be a good thing for Poland, but you can get that here.
You can get that here.
Yeah, there's nothing you'd miss out.
We have Polish stores, right, in Copenhagen. So you have that. But I think it's also changed for me. I think I don't know, but personally for me, it was when I first moved, it was this desperate need to hang on to where I came from. And that was Poland. So anything that would tie me back to or bring, again, nostalgic feelings, or I would be looking for that. So that's funny that you say that, because we used to drive to Poland a lot. And we would also bring back a lot of different food products because it made me feel more at home, more at ease. I think it's very typical for us to look at tastes and these things because we automatically get taken back to childhood or to our homes. It brings us back to family sometimes, occasions, right? Birthdays, things that we also miss when we are living abroad because we can't always be present. So I think food is a big thing. Not so much for me anymore. I think the longer you live in a place, which is also natural, the more your taste buds get used to how things are made and what you eat, and you just eat more local, which makes life much easier.
Definitely.
But I think for me, the biggest thing was missing these family occasions. So not being present at people's birthday parties. Every time I would hear about it, I would feel like, that's sad that we can't be there. And we couldn't always be there. So we would miss things. On the other hand, people also didn't always come to our events here, right? So it's just the way that goes. But I think as internationals, we're always living a little bit in between, even after we've been in a place for a long time, because you have that cultural backpack. Yeah. And it doesn't go away.
No, never leaves you.
It never leaves you.
Yeah.
And then it's finding a way of how do I cope with this? Because I think it can really kind of be a bit damaging on our well-being if we try to live in two places at the same time. It's not good for us.
Yeah.
So it's making a decision as well as, okay, right, I'm here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is my home. This is where I live.
Yeah.
And I think there's always that little sense of guilt, especially as I'm getting older and my dad's getting older, that I feel like a lot of the responsibility sits on my sister's shoulders because she's there. And there's that level of guilt as well.
Yes.
Unfortunately, I've lost both my in-laws over the last few years. So, I could support my husband in supporting his mum, but he couldn't really support me in supporting my dad, apart from just saying, right, go, go and visit. So I'm trying to get home more and trying to support my family. So you have a little bit of sense of guilt as you get older. And that can pull you as well. It can pull you, and it's not just the guilt about not being there, but just feeling about, if I was home, I could do this.
Yeah.
But knowing that that's not where you want to be, because you know that where you are now is where home is. And my whole life is here. Yeah. So there's a sense of guilt as well. And that's something I think you just have to live with when you're living abroad, when you've left where you grew up. It's and you'll have felt that when you moved from the States back to Poland. I know you really struggled with the reintegration there. Mm-hmm. I know if I went back to England now, I'd struggle going back, because I know what I'd miss here, which I can't get in England. Yeah. I couldn't get that there. So you have this, you sometimes feel a bit torn, but I think you have to, like, that epiphany moment when I thought, I can be miserable the rest of my life or I can just enjoy it. Yeah. That really did help me, actually, on a path of what I would call healing, recovery, whatever you want to call it, grieving a life that you thought you would have, especially with my career. I knew exactly where I could go with my career in England, never had the opportunity to here. And so you grieve parts of your life that you think would be very different at home, but then you've been able to have so much else. I've got, amazing husband. I've got a life here that I couldn't have if I lived in England. My boy couldn't just walk to school. I don't have to worry about him coming to and from school or, so it's just, so there's a few things that you're always going to struggle with, I think. Even when you feel settled somewhere, you're always going to have a little bit of a pull, right? And that's obviously really triggered you as well.
I mean, I made notes because what you've said is so true. So I think first and foremost, I would say, I don't know if you had this. I will first be personal and then we'll talk about it more. But guilt, I remember feeling guilty, thinking, right, we have some holidays coming up, so we have free days. Do we go and do something before we had our daughter? So just my husband and I. But after we had our daughter, even more so probably because you have grandparents and family that also want to see the child. Do we do something for us? Yeah. Or do we go and visit all the family back home? Yeah. And that's been such a huge struggle. And I know for a fact, all of you who will be listening or watching us as well, going through this. And it is something that we have to live with.
Yeah.
And it's something that's a part of this international life. And what we've done is that we started sometimes taking more and more trips that we wanted to take, which was super difficult. It was extremely difficult for me dealing with the guilt and then trying to let it go, because if we had made this decision to go on a trip on our own, I didn't want to carry that with me because then I wouldn't enjoy it. So there's so much there. I feel like there's a whole episode that we could do on guilt.
Exactly. Yes, definitely.
The other thing you said, going back to visit, I would hear very often, I don't hear it so much anymore, but I would hear in the beginning that I've changed. Yeah. Did you hear that too?
Yeah. Oh, you dress like a Dane. What does that mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That you've changed.
You've changed. Or that just the way of course you've changed.
Yeah.
You're living in a different country.
I'd fit right back in friendship groups, and people would say, it feels like you've not been away. And I would feel like that. But I'd also feel at the same time that their lives had moved on. Like I wasn't close to their kids, which I know I would have been if I'd been living there. Their kids were closer to other friends, or they were going on holiday with other friends, or they were having parties which I hadn't been included in, not because they were being mean, but because they just thought, oh, she won't be able to make that.
Right.
So, you're torn a bit as well. Like you do fit right back in with some friends and you're laughing within seconds, but you also know that you're going home at the end of the week or the end of the weekend or whatever it is. So, it does feel a little strange, I've got to say.
It is because you're like popping into people's lives and then you're popping out again, right?
Yeah, like an episode of something. Yeah. You're just coming in and then going away, and then you're thinking, when will I see you again? And that's not, I'll see you next week if you live around the corner.
Yeah, but you won't be there, right?
But I won't be there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you don't feel like, that can feel weird as well.
But I think we also said that, our way of thinking and values, which is such a huge thing, they change.
Yeah.
Especially when you've been exposed to different cultures and living abroad and being with different people. And what I noticed for me was that a lot of times family and friends would be very static in how their values and how they were living compared to when I would jump in and I would be thinking, oh, but why are you saying, but you could think of it this way, or so that I could seriously see my way of thinking, how that has changed. Yeah. Whereas they were a bit more, and not to say that that's wrong,
no,
because they're living in a different reality, right?
Yeah. And I think you experience something, and plus when you have your own family, when we had with our boys, that's your priority. But because you're abroad, it's like your family think they should be your priority. So like a little bit like you said, you made that decision to sometimes go on holidays that were just for you. I think it made it even worse when you had kids, because you feel like, oh, they're not going to be part of your kids' life, so they've got to go and see granddad. They've got to go and so he gets to know them, and I definitely feel my dad doesn't know my boys like he would maybe know, like he knows my sisters, because he sees them regularly.
Exactly.
Even though they're now adults, but still, I think he's missed out on that because he hasn't been able to travel, or and unfortunately that's just part of it. And that's just something that you have to just live with. But yeah, your values is very much, now it's about your family, it's about what's important to you. And I know my values have changed. It's definitely been about where I am with my family. Wherever my husband and kids are, that's my home. So it's not a choice of whether, oh, well, at some point will we go and live in England. It just doesn't really register for us. It's like, no, this is where are we going to retire here in Denmark? That's very much for us as a family. I can never see myself returning, not because I don't want to. It's just, it's not part of the plan. Really. Yeah.
I agree with you. I also think it's really great and interesting that you talked about the grief part, right? And there is, again, so much to unpack there.
Yeah.
But I know that my mistake was that I didn't really fully say goodbye. I think a huge part, and it's also what I talk about at work sometimes with people that are transitioning, moving, that you have to say goodbye.
Yeah.
Even if you plan on coming back, I think we never know what life has in store. I think it's really important to have a closure to one chapter before you start a new one.
Yeah.
So making sure that, you visit your favorite places, or you actually say goodbye. You don't have to say it out loud, but for yourself, that for now, or for a certain amount of time, I won't be here. I'm saying goodbye. Also your house. I think having these kinds of rituals, it doesn't make it easier, because moving is hard. It's really hard. And anyone who says that it isn't either hasn't done it, or just has been very lucky in the sense that they've moved to places that they adapted really easily to. So I think that part is important. And I also think it's important for us to say it's okay for us to grieve. It's okay for us to miss the places we used to live in, even the people that we used to be, right? Because we're also different.
Yeah. And I remember I got married on the Saturday, and the Sunday I moved here. And so I said to everyone, you can't say goodbye to me at my wedding, because I'll spend the whole day distraught. It'll be the worst day ever. And I knew that I was coming back at the following week, because we were going to travel through London to go on our honeymoon. And then I said, when I got on the flight from London, then I said, then you can say goodbye. And then it was really hard. And I can remember a funny story. I'd booked the flights, but I booked my son, my stepson, and my husband on a different flight by mistake. So I ended up flying back.
No, you did not. By yourself?
With the best man who barely knew me. He's a very close friend now, Torbs, and he'll laugh about it now, but I didn't know, and I just sobbed and just wailed. This poor fellow was like, okay, oh my gosh. She's just like, because I got myself on the wrong plane, so I couldn't even be with Alan and be emotional, because I was just on my own pretty much, because this poor guy hardly knew me at this point. So that was tough. But I said to everyone, nobody can say goodbye on my wedding day. You've just got to wait for another week. And then, but I think I didn't even grieve then. I think I took too long, and I really wish I'd just grieved all areas. My career, family, friends, the life I thought I would have had.
Exactly.
And then so I could just embrace the new one. But maybe that's why I struggled a little bit in those early years as well.
I think because we kept things in, right?
Yeah, definitely.
But then I guess it also leads us to, if you have your safe people, if you have a tribe, if you have a community, I think we need to be even more vocal and better at saying it's okay to come with the feelings. Let's talk about them, especially for all of us who are international, because we've all gone through it, right?
Definitely. And I was lucky in the early years with my Danish class, meeting a really good group of women. And then when I had a meal and I went back into Danish class, I met two Irish sisters, and they've been with friends ever since. And one of them had a little boy, and we really struggled living here. The other sister loved it. And now I'm more online with the other sister. The first sister went home because she just didn't enjoy it. And I felt like I'd lost a huge chunk, because that was like my family. So I think I've always, as I've gone through, every year maybe met somebody who's helped me get through that stage or that part of my settling here. And now I've got amazing friends. I've got amazing groups in different areas of my life but it's taken me a while to cultivate that and actually get people that I really trust. I actually, if you ask my husband, she's got hundreds of friends, but actually I've got a lot of people around me.
Yeah.
But I have very few people that I share my life with, that I really trust, that I would completely trust with the dark bits, the horrible bits, the good bits about me, because they're my safe space.
Yeah.
But that's taken me a long time. It's 17 years now, but that's taken me a while. But I would really encourage anyone, just find a like-minded person. Just start with one. And then you just build from there. And if somebody's really struggling, to reach out to one of us, to one of the groups that we're in. We'll introduce you to people. There's going to be somebody here that is going to be the perfect fit for you. A good friend, a good confidant, whatever it is that you need in your life. I feel like you just need to be bold. Constantly talk about being bold. Just being bold, step out your comfort zone and say, do you know what? I really don't have friends yet. I don't have a friendship base. I don't have somebody I could help me with my career. I don't have somebody who I can just share my moments with, because we all need that. I think we all crave. There's very few people want to be on their own, and even if they are introvert and actually enjoy recuperating and re-energizing on their own, we always need others
Completely.
And I if I can help anyone with that, that's what I'd love to do as well.
Yeah.
And that's one of the best things about workshops, is seeing people network.
Coming
together, chatting, and then I find out they've got a WhatsApp group.
Yes.
And then they're going to meet on a Friday, and they're going to job seek together, and that just fills me with joy. That's one of the things I love to get out of a workshop. That if people can meet others and go
and connect,
right? It's all about the connection, isn't it?
I love that.
And I've been really, really blessed over these years to find that, and to meet people like you, where we've just talked for a long time about, what can we do together? And then suddenly it was like, do you know what we should do? We should do a podcast, because we've got very similar stories. It's actually quite funny how alike we are.
It's true.
And we'll probably share a little bit about that, maybe later, maybe not. But actually it's about, I think I'd watched you from afar from a long time. I think I'd been reading articles that you'd written or something, but I really felt like I knew you before I knew you.
Yeah.
As well. Yeah. So it's been good. But I love the fact, that is the great thing about Copenhagen, right? It's so small.
It's so small.
And I know we talk Copenhagen. We know we're talking to the whole of Denmark, by the way, but it just happens to be where we live. And it's easier living in a capital this size, because you do get to meet other people, but you just get to meet random people at different times. And I think that's a good thing. You can reconnect and
so true.
Yeah, and meet some great people.
But also, I think, I agree with you. But Denmark in general is small, right? We know that. And so people will run into each other. And I love what you were saying about, I think we need to do an episode on grief.
Yeah,
in general, grief, like leaving your home country, but also grief of people leaving, because we've all had friends and then they move on or they move back. And that happens on a regular basis. So if you're living an international life, people will come into your life and they will leave your life. If we're blessed, we will have people who stay and are here for the long haul.
Lifers. We call ourselves lifers. Yeah.
The other thing is, when you said that, let's be open about it and say, I haven't really made any friends. There is no shame in that. All of us who've moved, we know you can't have a friends group. You can't have a community when you first arrive, unless you've done massive amounts of networking before you've moved. It's still not the same, because when you meet up physically, their bonds will form and it's a different interaction. We all know that. But let's talk about also adult friendships and making friends as adults, right? It's hard again.
I was so lonely as a mum. In those early days, I'd look at all these other mum groups, all these Danish mums going around together with their pushchairs and their babies and connecting, and I would be on my own with my little boy and feeling so lonely, and then seeing pictures on Facebook of friends having coffee mornings in England and thinking, but if I was home, I'd be part of that. And I didn't feel like, what could I do? I wasn't sure I tried mum groups, I tried that type of thing, but I think there was a sense of loneliness as well. And I think I'm not alone in that.
No.
So, if you are feeling lonely or a little bit out of touch, or, you know people, but you haven't met anyone you've really clicked with, reach out to us.
Yeah. And I think what you said with being bold, we need to shed this being ashamed or feeling that, I don't have this yet, or there is no shame in that. We need to be open about it. We need to support each other, and I'm with you 100%. So if you are feeling like that, feel free to reach out to us, because we see you.
Yeah. And Instagram's not real.
No.
We know that, right? So we look at everyone else's life, or their LinkedIn posts, or their Instagram world.
But LinkedIn is a bit better now.
LinkedIn's better, but Instagram, it's like this
Yeah.
fantastic world that everyone else has this life, but you don't have it. It's not like that in reality. And I think as I've got older, and of course I'm not used to social media throughout my whole life, as this young generation is, they're so used to it. For me, this is still a new thing, really, that you've got to appreciate that people only put the best bits. You know, we don't share the tough bits generally on there. We sometimes share about the tough bits about job seeking and stuff and careers and all that type of thing on LinkedIn. But generally on social media, it's all about, and then I did this and then I did that and my life is wonderful.
But it is changing a bit. It's LinkedIn especially.
LinkedIn, I think, is much better. I think people are being, especially now, it's being very real. Because we just need to be real. Because, you know, if you can't be your authentic self, that's another thing we could talk about as well. Yes. You need to be your authentic self. And you're trying to fit yourself like a square peg into a round hole. It's not easy.
And for those people who are going to say, oh, come on with the authentic self. No, it is true. It is true. And you don't need to. That's another episode. You don't need to become a local to belong.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Yeah. It's easy for me to have a sense of humour. British and Danish sense of humour is very similar. We're very direct. I'm from the north of England. We say a spade is a spade, and there's the same saying in Danish. So for me, it's very easy to adapt that way. But there's lots of other things where we are uber polite, where we have 20 words for the sake of 4. And I try and do that when I'm speaking Danish. I try and make Danish much longer and much more complicated than it should be. It's probably why I'm still not absolutely amazing in Danish, because I try too hard. But, you know, you've just got to run with the flow. What fits you will not fit another. What I love about Denmark, somebody else absolutely hates. That's just how it is, because we all come with a different background, different baggage. But please, we'll say it more than once on this session, just reach out to us if you're really struggling with that. We know we can suggest something, you know, suggest a coffee or whatever, just to find out, what do you like doing?
Exactly.
Who are you?
Because that's for me, true belonging starts with us.
Yeah.
So if you feel okay and good with yourself, if you also analyze and think about, what do I like? What do I want? What do I need? More of, less of? What am I looking for? It starts with you. Yeah. And then from there, you can go and search and find, and you will find people and different clubs and associations, but you have to sort of know what you're looking for, right? Yeah. Because looking blindly, it can be very difficult and can take a very long time. So it starts here. Yeah. And we look forward to hearing from you. Let us know what belonging means to you, what could help you find your sense of belonging, or if you have found it, what have you done? What were your steps or go-to groups? Or just the more we share, I think the better. And that's also our objective here with this podcast, is to share not only us with you, but you also with all of us, so that there is a sense of community and dialogue.
Yeah, great. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Yes, please subscribe, hit the button down below, and we'll see you soon.
See you soon.